Today, we're digging into a side of war that often gets lost in the noise, but is felt so deeply. We're talking about the personal cost of conflict. So, I want you to do something for me. When you hear the word war, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? Seriously, just take a second and picture it.
Okay, chances are it was something like this, right? We think of generals huddled over giant maps, lines of tanks, these grand, high-level strategies. It's all geopolitical chess moves and the kind of stuff you read about in history books. But let's be real, that's not the whole story, not even close. The true story, the one that really gets to the heart of it all, isn't happening in some command bunker. It's written in the lives of individual people on a much smaller scale, and that's where we're going today. So let's step away from the front lines for a moment. We're going to go beyond the battlefield to explore the ripple effects of conflict, the ones that touch every single part of a person's life. And to really get that, you have to understand the anatomy of loss. Because in war, loss isn't just one thing. Oh no, it's a domino effect, a whole cascade of things being taken away that rips apart the very fabric of someone's world. Of course, it all starts with the most final, most devastating loss of all, life itself. Whether it's a soldier or a civilian, every death leaves this void. It's a hole in a family that can never be filled, fundamentally changing its shape forever. It's the empty seat at the dinner table for years to come. And that loss expands outward. War doesn't just take people, it takes away communities. When people are forced to flee, when the places you used to gather, your market, your school, are turned to rubble, that social glue just dissolves. The trust, the support, it all starts to crumble, leaving people feeling totally alone. Then there's how you make a living. Think about it. When the farms, the factories, the small businesses are all destroyed, your economic security is just gone. It's not just about losing a job. It's about losing the ability to provide for your family. And that can trap people in poverty long after the last shot is fired. All of this external loss eventually starts to turn inward. For a soldier, it can lead to something called moral injury, that deep pain you feel when you've seen or done things that go against your own beliefs. For civilians, the constant fear and trauma can completely shatter their view of the world and of themselves. It messes with your very sense of identity. And finally, war steals the simple, everyday things we all take for granted. The morning coffee routine, walking your kids to school, celebrating a holiday, all of that gets wiped away. It's replaced by one single, all-consuming thought. How do I survive today? It sounds almost hopeless, doesn't it? But here's where the story takes the turn. Because in the middle of all that darkness, something pretty incredible happens. We see the power of the unbreakable human spirit. So how on earth do people manage to endure the absolute unthinkable? Well, it turns out resilience isn't just something you have, it's something you build. It starts inside, with mental tools, like finding a sliver of optimism or reframing a terrible situation. Then it's strengthened by connection to other people, your family, your neighbors. And it's proven through sheer adaptability, learning how to survive in a world that's constantly terrifyingly changing. And that resilience can sometimes lead to this really powerful, almost paradoxical idea called post-traumatic growth. It's this notion that struggling through something so horrific can, for some, spark a profound positive change. It doesn't erase the pain, not at all. But through it, people can find a new, deeper appreciation for life, form stronger bonds with others, and discover a personal strength they never knew they had. Which brings us to what happens next. The long, winding road of trying to find some semblance of normal in a world that conflict has completely turned on its head. But here's the thing about normal. You can't ever really go back to the way things were before. Normal becomes something new. It's about adapting to this harsh, new reality. The whole baseline of what life is, what you expect from it, has fundamentally, permanently shifted. And rebuilding a life after all that, it's not just one single task. It's a massive dual challenge. You're basically fighting a war on two fronts at the same time. See, you've got the individual's healing journey, working through the trauma, trying to create new routines, but that is completely intertwined with the healing of the entire society. You really can't have one without the other. How can a person find peace if the society around them is still broken? And how can a society rebuild without the people in it finding a way to heal? They have to happen together. So we've looked at the loss, the resilience, the search for a new normal. At the end of the day, we have to ask the big question. Why does any of this matter? Why is this perspective so important? Well, because getting a handle on this personal cost is not just some thought experiment. It has huge, real-world consequences. It means we can design support systems that actually work for survivors. It helps us create humanitarian aid that's more effective. It tells us how to approach rebuilding a nation after conflict. And maybe the biggest thing, it helps all of us argue for peace, not just with numbers and politics, but with a real gut-level understanding of what's truly at stake.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. When all the history books are written about the strategies and the battles, how do we make sure that this story, the story of the individual, of their loss and their incredible resilience, is never, ever lost?